How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about a classic slasher. This is Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984. For those of you guys who don't know, I'm primarily a horror channel. It's December, so I'm going to be covering Christmas movies all December long. Of course, primarily Christmas horror. There is going to be a couple that aren't horror, just things that I really wanted to talk about. So we'll get to those eventually, but for right now, Christmas horror, Silent Night, Deadly Night, a Santa slasher, pretty much the original Santa slasher, or at least one of the earliest, really sparked controversy when it came out, but a very good movie, not just a great Christmas horror, but a really great slasher. It's kind of like, you have Freddy, Jason, and all those guys, the ones everybody know. But then there's the slightly more deep-cut slashers, like The Burning, Just Before Dawn, and stuff like that, that a lot of slasher fans know, and that belongs in this category. Anyway, really good. 1984, the first one of the series, directed by Charles E. Sellier Jr., and starring Robert Brian Wilson as Billy the Killer. And although she only has a small part, one segment, it is worth noting that Linnea Quigley is in this movie. Linnea Quigley, I really like. She's in Return of the Living Dead and Night of the Demons, two movies that are among my favorite movies. So it's really good to see her again. She plays a babysitter and gets up to her typical Linnea Quigley antics, but really cool to see the Scream Queen in this movie, even if it is just for one little segment there. Really fun. Anyway, gonna go ahead and talk about the plot. No major spoilers, but I do want you guys to know what this movie's about in general, and I do want to say my piece on a few plot points, but no major spoilers. Although it's a slasher movie, you can guess the gist of it. But anyway, this movie opens up with Billy and his family going to see their grandpa. His family, mom, dad, little baby brother, and himself. They're going to see grandpa, who's in a mental health facility, and he's been unresponsive. He's not talking and not really moving. He's sitting in his chair in one position. The family leaves Billy with him as they go to sign some paperwork. They get in, they leave Billy, they go. And this leads to a really cool scene, probably one of my favorite scenes in slasher movies and horror. Billy's left alone with his grandfather, and as soon as he's left alone, the grandfather, who's unresponsive, snaps awake and alert. And he goes and tells Billy, "You know what day it is? It's Christmas Eve. Are you afraid? You should be. This is the day when Santa Claus comes to punish naughty kids. Are you sure you've been good enough?" And it's this really out of nowhere, creepy and ominous warning. And it, of course, spooks Billy. But when the family and doctor come back, he's back to being normal, unresponsive, and still. So is anyone going to believe him? They have a little bit of an argument in the car, and Billy's scared when his parents disagree with him about Santa. And by a huge coincidence, there's a gas station not too far away, and a man disguised as Santa Claus robs the place and winds up killing the guy behind the counter. And he's really upset because he only got like $30-some-odd out of the job. And he gets in his car, drives away, and pulls over on the side of the road, and the family sees that. Oh, hey, Santa broke down, how funny is that? Billy knows better and is like, no, don't stop. And of course they do, and Santa kills Billy's parents. And he had just been arguing with them about Santa and thinks that Santa did it as a punishment specifically for them. Billy gets away, and the thief doesn't bother with the baby brother. I mean, it's a baby. It's not going to be that great a witness. So he survives this encounter, which leads to cut to a few years later. He's in an orphanage, a religious orphanage led by Mother Superior there. And Mother Superior is overall she wants to do the right thing, but she is very strict, and Billy is having some problems. You can tell that Billy, they don't know how much he remembers, but he's drawing very violent images where Santa is dying and like the reindeer are getting their heads cut off and there's knives everywhere. So he's in a bit of trouble, but then one day he witnesses what I'm guessing are two of the older orphans who've snuck off together, Friday the 13th style. He doesn't know what's going on, but Mother Superior walks by, and Mother Superior knows, and this really gets her angry. She talks to Billy about it later and says, "Do you know what they were doing? No, they were doing something very bad, and they must be punished." And this leads to a line that will really define Billy's life. She tells him, "Punishment is good, punishment is necessary." And this sticks in his head, plus with the idea of Santa as the moral police, and they kind of stick together. Santa is who punishes people, punishment is good, and punishment is necessary. Cut to a few more years later, Billy's 18 now, and he grew up big and strong, which gets him a job in the warehouse in the back of a toy store, and everything's going okay for the most part. Christmas is coming around. This leaves him a little upset. Again, I don't know how much he actually remembers, but then the guy who was supposed to play Santa broke his ankle, I think he's ice skating or something, and they tell him, "Hey Billy, you're the next best guy to play Santa." They make him play Santa Claus, and it's kind of upsetting him. You see him there with the kids, and you get this moment where it zooms in on him and a child who's misbehaving. He goes, "You're misbehaving. You wouldn't want Santa to punish you, would you?" And the kid gets really quiet and starts behaving, and the parents don't hear what he says, so you see the adults going, "Wow, he's so good with kids. He made that little girl stop squirming." So you know something's up. But he eventually, you know, it's the after party, and some of the co-workers sneak off, and that triggers Billy. He remembers what he's been taught about punishment. He now has become Santa Claus, and this leads him to go on his rampage. And this is really what's better about this movie when you compare it to, you know, other just mindless slashers, is it does really have a point behind it. The point of moral authority creating people that do bad things in the name of good. And they used, you know, Santa Claus and the Catholic Church, but if you really look around you, this is something that can quite easily happen, and it's something that's good to keep in mind is how morals, I mean even good morals, can be enforced in society, and what that can do to people, and how that can create people like Billy. And it is something to think about, and it really sets it apart from your average just so-so slasher where they, you know, just kill people. But that being said, it is still a slasher and they still kill people. And the kills in this movie are pretty good. Billy is really an opportunistic slasher. You know, he has, as you can see on the cover, this fire axe, which is in the movie even though he doesn't climb out the chimney. But he doesn't always just kill people with his axe. He looks around his environment, and if he, say, sees Christmas lights, he might strangle someone with Christmas lights. If he sees a window, he might throw them out the window. Any little thing that people are doing or nearby, he can use to kill them. And it's really good to see someone that scans the environment and takes advantage of all these opportunities. But like I said, this was one of the first Santa slashers. People were very upset about it, and it was, of course, heavily censored. You see, like, My Bloody Valentine also got censored like this. Of course, Wes Craven's Last House on the Left got censored like crazy, of course. But Anchor Bay, of course, this has a message that I've seen on a lot of slasher movies on the front. We've assembled this from several film elements to give you the best complete cut, but you may notice the dip in picture quality. And when you see that, you can tell where they cut this movie. In some scenes, you're like, okay, why'd they cut it? Like a shot of Billy, you know, staring at someone, you know, stalking. You're like, okay, it's just staring. But the other times it's like the final, the ta-da shot of the whole scene. They cut that out, and you're like, does this scene really work as well without that moment? And it is sad to see that these scenes were cut. And it's great to have them back because, you know, the shots don't work. You know, the scenes don't work as well without it. But yeah, really gritty and cool in that way. This is an 80s slasher, but I always felt it had more in common with the 70s slasher. Really kind of reminds me of, say, the Toolbox Murders. This is really more the gritty, true crime feel that a lot of slashers would have pre-Halloween and Friday the 13th. And it's really cool to see that aesthetic back, and you don't see it everywhere. So don't really expect so much of a fun, ta-da, it's Christmas movie. This is a gritty, true crime style slasher that, you know, even though you can see the influence of Halloween and Friday the 13th, it feels much more like the 70s. Really cool and grimy, and I really do like that. It's really fun. Overall, I definitely would recommend it if you're a fan of the tone. Don't go in and expect something wacky. But if you like things like the Toolbox Murders, if you like the 1970s slashers, I'd recommend checking this out. I know this is a good one, but I know that not all the sequels are great. This actually got all the way up to Part 5, and then they did a remake, and Part 2 is pretty notoriously bad. So I don't think the rest of the series lived up to the first one, but I do want to eventually check them out. But yeah, the first one is definitely a slasher classic, a horror classic, a Christmas horror classic, and I was really glad to get to rewatch this for this series. Anyway, speaking of the series, I will have a playlist up at the end to my entire Christmas stuff, so if you want to check out more that I've talked about, that'll be there. It's not the longest playlist, but we're going to be building that up all month long. So anyway, to everyone who stuck around, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I cover primarily horror on this channel, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, I definitely recommend sticking around. More Christmas stuff to come, and of course the relevant playlist, the Christmas playlist down at the bottom. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys again very, very soon.